Have you ever found yourself scrolling through the news, seeing reports of violence and conflict in the Middle East, and wondering what's really going on with the Israel Palestine conflict, and more importantly, why it's been going on for so long, and why it's so hard to find a solution, and how it affects people just like you? You're not alone, we've all been there, trying to make sense of the endless headlines, and wondering what's at the root of this decades-long struggle. The conflict has been a major source of anxiety and confusion for many of us, with its complex history and seemingly intractable issues, and you may have even felt helpless watching the violence and suffering unfold, wondering how such a small piece of land can cause so much pain and suffering for so many people. The images of rockets flying through the air, of families fleeing their homes, of protests and demonstrations are all too familiar, and they can be overwhelming, leaving us feeling frustrated and unsure of what to do or even where to start. And the fact that it's been going on for so long, with no end in sight, can be especially debilitating, and you may have even found yourself wondering if there's any hope for a resolution, or if this conflict will just continue to simmer and boil over, causing pain and suffering for generations to come. For example, you might have seen the videos of Gaza Strip residents struggling to access basic necessities like food and water, or the pictures of Israeli families hiding in bomb shelters, waiting for the rocket fire to stop, and these images can be haunting, leaving us feeling like we're watching a never-ending nightmare with no waking up and no escape. The conflict has also had a profound impact on the global community, with many countries taking sides and others trying to stay out of it. But it's hard to ignore the humanitarian crisis that's unfolding, and the fact that it's affecting not just Israelis and Palestinians, but people all around the world. The Israel-Palestine conflict is a complex and deeply rooted issue, with a history that spans over a century. And to understand it, we need to go back to the early 20th century when the Zionist movement, which aimed to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine, began to gain momentum, and the British government, which controlled Palestine at the time, issued the Balfour Declaration, which expressed support for the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine, but also acknowledged the rights of the existing non-Jewish communities, and this declaration laid the foundation for the conflict, as it created conflicting expectations and promises, and set the stage for the competing claims and interests that would drive the conflict for generations to come. The British government's decision to support the Zionist movement was motivated by a desire to gain Jewish support for their war efforts during World War I. But it also reflected a deeper sense of sympathy for the Jewish people, who had been persecuted and discriminated against for centuries. And the idea of a Jewish homeland was seen as a way to provide a safe haven for Jews from around the world. However, the Palestinian Arabs, who had been living in the region for centuries, saw the influx of Jewish immigrants as a threat to their way of life, and their concerns were ignored by the British government, which prioritized the interests of the Zionist movement. In the years that followed, the conflict escalated, with violence and protests becoming more frequent, and the British government struggled to maintain control. And in 1947, the United Nations proposed a plan to divide Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem to be administered by the UN. But this plan was rejected by the Arab states, and the Jewish community accepted it. And on May 14, 1948, the State of Israel was declared, and the surrounding Arab states launched a war against the new state, which resulted in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, known as the Nakba or catastrophe in Arabic. And this event marked the beginning of the Palestinian refugee crisis, which continues to this day. The creation of Israel was a moment of great joy and celebration for the Jewish people, but it was also a moment of great tragedy and loss for the Palestinian people, who were forced to flee their homes and leave behind their livelihoods. And the refugee crisis that ensued was a humanitarian disaster, with hundreds of thousands of people left without access to basic necessities like food and water. Since then, the conflict has continued, with periods of relative calm punctuated by outbreaks of violence, and the construction of Israeli settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem has been a major point of contention, as it's seen as an attempt to annex Palestinian land and undermine the prospects for a two-state solution. And the Israeli government has also imposed strict controls on the movement of Palestinians, including checkpoints and walls, which have had a devastating impact on the Palestinian economy and quality of life. The conflict has also had a profound impact on the Israeli people, who have lived with the threat of terrorism and violence for generations. And the psychological toll of this constant fear and anxiety cannot be overstated. And the fact that the conflict has been ongoing for so long, with no end in sight, has created a sense of hopelessness and despair, which can be overwhelming, and it's hard to see a way out of this cycle of violence and fear. Despite numerous attempts at a peace process, including the Oslo Accords and the Camp David Summit, a lasting resolution has yet to be achieved, and the conflict remains one of the most intractable and complex in the world, with deep-seated issues of identity, territory, and security that need to be addressed. And it's hard to see a way forward, but it's not impossible, and there are still many people working towards a peaceful resolution. And it's up to us to stay informed and to support those efforts, and to remember the human cost of this conflict, and the fact that it's not just a political issue, but a human one, and that it affects real people, with real lives and real stories. The conflict is a reminder that even in the face of great adversity, there is always hope, and that the human spirit can persevere even in the darkest of times. And it's up to us to hold on to that hope, and to work towards a future where Israelis and Palestinians can live in peace and dignity, and where the conflict is a distant memory and not a current reality. The Israel-Palestine conflict is a complex and deeply rooted issue, and it's not going to be resolved overnight, but by understanding its history and the competing claims and interests that drive it, we can begin to see a way forward, and we can start to build a more just and peaceful future for all. In the end, the Israel-Palestine conflict is a reminder that peace is not just the absence of war, but the presence of justice, and that until we address the underlying issues of inequality and injustice, we will never truly have peace. And it's up to us to stay committed to the pursuit of justice, and to never give up on the possibility of a better future. As we reflect on the Israel-Palestine conflict, let us remember the words of Nelson Mandela, who said that the greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. And let us hold on to the hope that one day, Israelis and Palestinians will be able to live in peace and dignity, and that the conflict will be a distant memory.